does what you accomplished now with the speed record, where does that come out on your list of your greatest hits?
Well, I can tell you, I've won races, all over the country. I've been top speed at races, low ET at races, competed for championships. I have never got more feedback than what we did last week. And the reason I think, Frank, is that people have a hard time sometimes relating to elapsed time. Like we run 1,000 feet in 3.8 seconds. Everybody can relate to speed. And when you tell someone you went 341 plus miles per hour in 3 seconds in 1,000 feet, it's never been done in the history of the world. And they labeled me the king of speed, and it's something that we really went after this past week.
Is it your greatest accomplishment?
It's hands down my greatest accomplishment in racing to this point, to be the first ever to break 340 miles per hour in a wheel-driven car on 4 wheels. It's by far my greatest accomplishment. I'm so proud of my team. I give them all the credit. I just hung on, right? I had to do a little bit of driving, as you can see in the film, but the guys worked really hard on the car through the winter with aerodynamics, with Ford Motor Company, and they gave me a package that we knew we had a chance. On the Thursday night, we went 339, tied the all-time world record, and on Friday night, I remember rolling up to the line. I unplugged my helmet. I have a helmet where we can talk, and I unplugged the helmet. I said to the guys, I said, listen, I just want to be alone. I want to do this. I want to focus, because as a driver, you have to run the perfect line. You don't want to let the car get out of the groove and smoke the tires. You don't have many chances in your career to do something like what we did. And I remember going through the finish line, and I got out of the car, and I knew it was an awesome run. Didn't know what it ran, because you can't tell them 1 mile per hour. And I came around the corner in the car. I got out, and the woman that was announcing the race looked at me, and she gave me a thumbs up. And I get goosebumps right now, because no one's ever seen 340 on a scoreboard anywhere in the world. And we did it, and we did it in front of all the professional racers. It was the all-star race. The best of the best in the world showed up and gave it everything we had, and we came out with the top speed, so it was pretty awesome.
How long had the record stood before you broke it?
25 years. So the barriers that we talk about was 300 miles per hour. That was Kenny Bernstein. He was the original king of speed. 310, Kenny did that in a dragster. Then it was 320, 330 miles per hour was Tony Schumacher. And the sanctioning body made the racetrack shorter. So instead of a quarter mile, it's 1,000 feet. So we had like a football field less distance, which makes it harder. And then they did things like took ignition out of our cars, changed our header angle, because at some point they don't want us going, 400 miles per hour. And 25 years later, from breaking 330 miles per hour, we were the first one to ever break that 340 mile per hour barrier. I don't think I'm going to be around for 350, but I can tell you we're pretty excited about what we did. We have a great race car. Competed right down to the last race for the World Championship last year. We missed it by a half a round. And we're going into 2024 with a lot of momentum. And to have that speed record, it'll be broken at some point, but nobody can say they were the first to 340, and that's something that we're very proud of.
So looking at the footage and after the race, your entire team was excited, but there was nobody more excited than your dad.
Oh, yeah. No, my dad's my biggest fan. You'll see him behind the car when he's there on TV, and he gives the fist pump when I hit the throttle. It was special to have my wife there, my dad, my uncle was there, and to do it with them in that moment, it'll be one that I'll never forget.
Yeah. You said that when you did the run, you knew it was good, but you didn't know it was going to set a record. I mean, did you not know when you hit the throttle that at some point during that run that this was going to be special?
Well, I knew about half track, so these cars pull to a certain point. We pull about 6.5 Gs of acceleration, and then it starts to calm down a little bit. We'll go through the lights at about 4 Gs. I knew when I passed half track, it was pulling real hard, and it wasn't laying over. It was still charging to that finish line, and I knew it was an epic run. Now, did I know it was 341 miles per hour? I would have been happy at 340.00, right? And when we came around the corner, and I didn't know what it ran, right? I got out of the car, and And I looked at the reporter, and she told me 3:41, and that was like just jaw-dropping to do something like that. And it was a lot of fun. So we go next week to Gainesville, 2 weeks to Gainesville, Florida, to open up our season at the Gator Nationals. And we got a great race car that's going to go out there and hopefully do some more spectacular stuff this season.
So I know about G-force. I once went on a run, Olympic run on the luge.
Sure.
Yeah, and so you know that it presses down on your body.
Yes.
So could you tell in your body just by, because you're used to how it feels when it's a certain speed, that this was different, that it was pressing you a little bit harder? Or?
Yeah, and the difference was it was pressing me harder longer. And that's what really set the run apart. The G-force just didn't go away. The 6.5 Gs pulled for a longer period of time. And then I really knew how fast I was going, Frank, when the parachutes come out. What people don't realize is we get about 6.5 positive Gs. We get -7 when the parachutes come out. So hitting them at 341 miles per hour, I remember just hitting the belts, knocking the wind out of me. And when you feel that negative G-force for that long, and you have about a 13 G swing from 6.5 positive to -7 Gs, it was, I tell people, it's a violent experience in the race car to feel that kind of G-force change. But it was the sweetest feeling I've ever felt in my life, because I knew that we did something special. And again, I'm just so proud of my team and how hard they worked all winter long. And it's interesting because for years it was like a record that could never be reached. And for us, the moment changed October of 23 when we were in Dallas, and we ran 338.68 miles per hour. And I'll never forget coming back to the pit, and the guys, my crew chiefs, looked at me, and I thought they'd be like excited about 338. No one had done it in a very long time. And they go, "We think we can go 340. And in that moment, the belief of achieving that goal started to become a reality. And I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" He said, "Well, we got plans." And they worked all winter on strategy, on fuel systems, aerodynamics, all the little things to find that extra 1.4 miles per hour. Mm-hmm. And they found a little extra. And when we ran 339, I remember coming in the trailer Thursday night, I'm like, "Guys, that's awesome. We tied the record, but could you have found a little bit more to get us to that 340 mark?" And we had one more shot that next night, and they had the car on the perfect setup at the perfect night. I ran the perfect line, and we did something nobody's ever done. So I'm really excited about it, especially be here in Rhode Island to bring a world record back like that to Rhode Island. And we got to go get this championship now, Frank. That's priority number one. We start in Gainesville, and we end in Pomona in November of later in the year.
Why do you think the sports organizers are making it more difficult? Don't you think it's almost like, baseball? Don't you want there to be a home run record, and because it brings more attention to the sport? Don't you think that they would want somebody to run faster so that, we're talking about the sport more?
So the answer to the question is yes and no. Absolutely, they love the excitement, they love the speed. I think there were some concerns that Goodyear, the first two people that walked up to my car were Goodyear engineers. What Goodyear has done for these tires, and they don't sponsor me, we give them a lot of money buying tires, the engineering that goes into this tire, Frank, is unimaginable. To see the tire on television in slow motion, the back of it's flat, because there's so much energy pulling it around. And at what point is the tire engineered to? I was the test pilot. The Goodyear's engineers came up, they took pictures, they said, "Guys, what do you think?" He goes, "Bob, the tires look great. They look awesome. We're happy with it." So I think some of the concern is the safety of the driver. At what point does the speed become real dangerous from the standpoint of tires and stopping? Like, the tracks didn't get any longer from when my grandfather went 200 miles per hour back in the 60s. The tracks are the same length. And now we're going 340 miles per hour on these tracks. So safely stopping the car and making sure the tires can sustain these kind of loads, I think, is what they're concerned about. I think we kind of showed them that they're good at 340 miles per hour. But there's one big obstacle in continuing to achieve these speeds is distance. We only have 1,000 feet. So the aerodynamic loads that we feel, imagine sticking your hand out of a window of a car at 60 miles per hour, right? Stick it out at 340 miles per hour, rip your arm off, right? So the engineering of the cars and overcoming the aero factor in only 1,000 feet just makes it more and more challenging. So it took 25 years to go from 330 to 340. It may take 50 years to go from 340 to 350, right? So it just becomes much more challenging. So who knows, maybe I'm the last person to ever break the barrier in drag racing, because 350, 360 miles per hour, that's going to be pretty hard to do.